The fourth stage of Erickson's psychosocial theory that I'm going to be talking about today is the individual identity versus identity confusion. This stage lasts from about 18 to 24 years old, or what is now called later adolescence. So, this is the stage that I am currently in right now. This has been an interesting stage as being a grad student and just coming straight out of undergraduate studies and really learning about that autonomy from my parents. So it started with leaving and going to undergraduate. And for that was very hard for me because I'm from Ohio and I went all the way to Atlanta, Georgia for undergrad. And in the process of deciding where I wanted to go for my undergraduate studies, even though the school I did end up attending, Spelman College, was my number one choice, the distance was very scary for me. Even I love being home. I'm very family oriented, so the idea of being 9 hours away seemed awful. But my parents were very encouraging and also family friends about how if this is my dream, 4 years is okay. Once I got down to Atlanta, though, the transition became very easy for me and harder for my parents, especially my mom. I loved Atlanta and I loved being able to live on my own, kind of do what I want when I want. I had all the say, besides dorm rules. And I loved the college life. And my parents found it hard because, especially my mom, because she was at home now with my dad and my four brothers, and she just felt like she was completely outnumbered, and there was so much testosterone in the house, so she always looked forward to me coming home. Though over the years, I did start to come home less and less. Right now, I am transitioning into the graduate school life. This transition has been a little harder for me because I'm in a city where I don't really know too many people. At least when I was in Atlanta, I had a family friend who was like an older sister who lived there, so I always had that assurance that, well, if anything went wrong, she was there and I knew she could help me. Moving to Philadelphia, I didn't have that. I knew a couple people, like I knew a girl from the program who attended Spelman, and I did have a friend from Spelman who ended up coming back home, but it wasn't that more secure, safe tie that I felt when moving to Atlanta, Georgia. So this transition has been a little harder because now I'm also being financially independent, and that has been very stressful. Learning how to manage my own money, making sure I pay my bills on time since I'm living in an apartment all by myself, not with a roommate or staying on campus where it's paid in full for the year. So the transition has been very interesting, but I'm learning a lot about myself and also about how to learn how to balance. It would be great if I had a therapist now to kind of help give me goals and different ways to cope with new stress that I'm encountering. But to just also help me stay on the up and up as I transition into this new phase. What also goes on in the stage of 18 to 24 is career choice. I think this is where the majority of my stress has been coming from because for the majority of my life as working as a teen, I was working in retail or at a grocery store. It was just easy, fun money, nothing major. But now, as I'm working at a retail store here in Philadelphia, I'm finding it so difficult because it's not as fun anymore. It's not what I am passionate about. And I think that's been my struggle is having to go and do something that I'm not passionate about while studying my passion and wanting to just be able to jump head first into doing that. And think also with the structure of my work environment is also very different from past work experiences where I'm working at a very small store versus a larger scale store. So there's only 5 employees, and so I'm also getting scheduled more than I would necessarily like to be scheduled, and it's starting to conflict with class. And ultimately, school does come first for me because I do want to make sure that I'm on the right track for my career and becoming a dance movement therapist. So if I was to have a therapist now at this stage, I would also want to focus on helping me learn how to say no, because that is something I do struggle with. And I feel bad when my workplace is struggling and there's no one to come in. I feel ultimately obligated, especially with it being such a small population of employees. I feel like I always have to say yes. And knowing that at this point in my life, I can't do that anymore because ultimately school comes first. And even though my employers say that, they don't necessarily think about that when asking me to cover all these hours that I just cannot do anymore. So these are my reflections from later adolescence of Erikson's psychosocial stage of individual identity versus identity confusion.